on? Yeah, it is on. So, hello and welcome everybody. You are joining the second meetup of the Agile with Ukraine initiative. My name is Andrei Glushchenko, or Andrew, you can call me. We have also Artem Bekovets with us, who is
Artem
also a
Bekovets.
co-organizer.
Yep.
And we have today an amazing guest, Gunther Verheyen. I believe this is the man who does not need any introduction, because he is the most known, one of the most known person in Agile communities, but also one of the most known, if not the most known person in Scrum communities. To be honest, when I started practicing Scrum right after Scrum Guides, I read the Scrum Pocket Guide. And still, while being a PST and I run the PSM course, I said that every and each Scrum Master have at least two things that are must read. And first one is obviously Scrum Guide, because you won't believe how many Scrum Masters does not read the Scrum Guide. And second thing is actually the Scrum Pocket Guide. Yeah, and I truly believe that. We're gonna start right now. We're gonna start with a short presentation. We're gonna ask all of the participants to remain muted throughout the event till the Q&A session that we're gonna have at the very end. Meanwhile, you can ask questions in the chat. Artem and I, we are going to look through them. And Gunther said that Gunther wants his presentation to be more interactive, so we're gonna ask questions if they pop up right during Gunther's speech, right, Gunther?
Yeah, absolutely. So post questions in the chat, and then I hope indeed that Artem and Andrei will pick them up. And if they think it's a really great question, they can at least try to gently interrupt me and make me answer the question. And if I don't feel like I will just keep talking. But no, I never do that.
We're gonna raise our hand, and if you don't see, then we will say, Gunther, we have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead. Just Artem did something very strange. He invited us to express our sense of humor. You have no idea what you just unleashed by having me tell jokes.
Yeah, it's very, very appreciated. I don't want to feel alone in this room, you know. So
okay.
I'm looking for a party, so to say.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, great.
So, guys, about what's happening and this initiative. So you all know that currently in Ukraine there is war, and we started this initiative to help raise money to help Ukrainian people, and also for those who are defending our country. I'm gonna tell how I'm feeling, and I'm gonna tell how the 24th of February started for me. So for me, it is a special day, because on 24th of February, my mother has a birthday. And growing up, I was a very, very stubborn kid. I made a lot of trouble for my parents. And now, as I'm older, I understand more. And for me, this is 24th of February is really, really a special day. And you could imagine my emotions when I woke up. Oh, could you mute yourself, please? Yep, thank you. Yeah, you could imagine my emotions when I woke up on the 24th of February. Suddenly I woke up at 5:30 a.m. So 1 hour and a half right after the war started. I live in Warsaw, Poland, and it was 6:30 a.m. I've seen that my mother was online. So the first thing I did, I called, and never have I started congratulating my mother on her birthday with the words, "Are you safe?" I really hope that nobody could witness that, because I'm usually a pretty tough guy, and I had this feeling in my throat that I could barely speak. And talking about what's happening in Ukraine, we have a war over there. Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February, and this is how our cities look like right now. On the left, on the top left, you have Kharkiv. This is the city where there is more than 1.4 million of population. And this is the central square of Kharkiv, the biggest square in Europe. It's called the Square of Freedom. On top right, you have Mariupol. I used to play basketball, and back till the 2014, till Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, in Donbass, it was a great city. And they had a great basketball team. And being a kid, they were our rivals, and we were going over there 3 or 4 times a year. On the top left, on the bottom left, you have Chernihiv. And this is the public administration of Chernihiv. Yeah. And on the bottom right, you have Sumy. This is the school at Sumy, which is actually in the center of the city. Does any of these places look to you like a military object, which Russia claims they're bombing? I believe they are not. And why should we help Ukraine right now? Because I live in Poland, and Poland is very close to Ukraine territorially. But if we take a look in Europe, the war isn't very long away from the whole Europe. And by helping Ukraine, we started cooperating with the foundation, and people that started this foundation in 2014, I know them personally, and the foundation is called the United Foundation. So they started helping Ukrainian people and Ukrainian army back in 2014. So what did they supply? They supplied pretty much everything there was needed. When the situation a bit descaled, they had 2 amazing projects, one of which was called Christmas Without a Dad, and it was dedicated for kids who lost their fathers while defending Ukraine. They took care of the kids, they paid for their education, they also took them back here to Europe for some kind of vacation, which was fully paid from this foundation. Right now, as the war started, the foundation started working very, very intensely, and all of the money that we're going to raise, they're going straight to this foundation. Why we are cooperating with exactly this foundation? First one, because it's trustworthy. And I know people who work there personally. I've been there on Saturday, and every hour there was a truck which was delivering what is needed to Ukraine. Every hour. So what we really as Ukrainians appreciate right now in the world, that there are a lot of initiatives that have an intent to help. And this is cool. We see how the world united. We see how Ukraine matters to the whole world. And not just from politicians claim or they speak, but regular people, they are just helping. But also with having a lot of foundations and a lot of places who gather money, there is one problem. Because when you donate money, from the moment that you donate till the time that people who need the help actually get it, sometimes it takes too much time. And we are people who love agility, right? For me, I'm a very great fan of Scrum. And when we say about the advantages of Scrum, advantages of agility, we also say about time to market. So we are cooperating with exactly this foundation because the time to market till you make a donation and the help actually gets to the person who needs it, it's very, very, very short. Okay. So as we talk about this foundation, there are 3 main directions, 3 main courses toward which the foundation raises money. First one is humanitarian and medical help. So what humanitarian help is obvious. As we talk about medical help, there are two things. First one is medical help for people who are actually in the bomb shelters, who are injured because of bombing, and those are civilians. And second direction of medical help is actual medical equipment that is being used by our medical doctors who are on the battlefield. Okay. Second direction is that this foundation raises money to buy Kevlars and helmets. And the reason why we raise money for that as well, because currently Ukrainian army is actually split in 2 main, let's say, forces. First one is the armed forces of Ukraine, where we mainly have trained professionals who defend our country, but also we have formed something that is created the territory defense of Ukraine. where we have people who are the veterans of the war in Donbass, but also volunteers. So imagine right now you're sitting at the meetup, and when the war started, we actually had a very large very large queues for people who enlisted as a volunteer to defend the country. Right now, we have more than 100,000 men and women in reserves. What does it mean in reserve? It means that people are not being trained or not being pushed to, not pushed, but directed to defend our country because they just don't have the gear for that. They don't have Kevlars, they don't have helmets, right? And third direction is tactical equipment, such as night vision, thermal vision, gloves, boots, etc., etc., etc. Why we are saying this? Because we understand that not everybody might be comfortable in donating to, for example, Kevlars or helmets or tactical equipment. So if you want to donate and you want to donate for some specific direction, in the comment section where you donate, you can actually write for which the donation is being made, and the foundation will use those money exactly for that. Okay, to be honest, the things that we need most is actually Kevlars and helmets and tactical equipment for our brave warriors. How you can make a donation? As there are two services. First one is in Polish and here on my right, which is called Zrzutka.pl, where you can donate through the webpage. We have the link over here, and also it will be mentioned in the chat. But
It's
also
already there.
It's already there. Thank you. I just don't see the chat. And also we have PayPal, and PayPal you can find on our webpage, agilewithukraine.com. And right now, I just want to thank you for your attention and willing to participate in this initiative. And let's maybe move forward to the most pleasant part of our evening, is actually letting Gunther speak and deliver his amazing presentation. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Thank you very much. So, warm welcome to everybody, despite the awful circumstances. I think it's good to sort of have two, benefit from what we're doing. First of all, supporting the people of Ukraine. Yeah, Andrei, you still wanted to say something? Or?
I just forgot to ask Artem. Maybe here Artem wanted to add something. I'm sorry, Artem, for that.
I believe that you.
Sorry for interrupting.
We've taken more than enough time from Gunther, so maybe at the end.
Okay,
please continue.
Cool. Yeah, it's good. I like this because it's supporting the people of Ukraine. And as I've been saying to at least a couple of people that were like almost cynical or skeptical about the support we're giving, is that whatever you think politically, whatever, I don't care. I'm skeptical about anything, armies, whatever, but this is not about picking sides. It's not about politics. And if it was about picking sides, it would be picking side of the Ukrainian people and the inhumane suffering that they are going through right now. So but indeed, let's in a way, let's talk Scrum, so to speak. But I want to share first why I am doing this anyhow. So you see map of Ukraine and the flag we all know by now. You see red and yellow and blue appearing across the world. The reason why I'm doing this is the following. So thank you very much, by the way, Andrei, for the very kind introduction. So I've worked with several people, including Andrei, and all people read my book. I've also worked with other people from Ukraine, and I remember a long time ago, back in 2015, I was training trainers. So I used to do classes as a professional Scrum trainer, working for Scrum.org to train potential trainers, candidate trainers. And I met one of them back in, I think it must have been 2015. And it was this person, Bogdan Misura. He came all the way to the Netherlands, a little place called Delft, to attend my class and then be part of the train-to-trainer part of that class, against the hope of becoming a professional Scrum trainer himself. By the way, he still is not, but that's irrelevant. So I met with Bogdan, and that was also the time, around the time that we try to inspire people to start organizing events around the world called Scrum Day. So Bogdan decided to start organizing a Scrum Day Ukraine in the amazing city of Kiev. He invited me to come there, so I did. So I went to Ukraine, Kiev, to speak to open up the Scrum Day Ukraine. I've been there a couple of times. Then Bogdan has been so kind to organize and facilitate classes for me. So I've done a couple of PSM and PSPO classes in Ukraine, obviously in English. At my first visit to Ukraine, a lady working with Bogdan, and maybe she still is, Karina McQueen. By the way, McQueen is not a real name. She's sort of more like a sort of artist. She's a beautiful lady. She was helping out Bogdan with his organization in Kiev. Karina was also very much into literature and writing and plays and so on. So great lady to work with. Now today, I know both of them are safe. I don't know where Karina is. I'm supposing still in Kiev. I've been in touch with Bogdan a couple of times and trying to send messages and see how he's doing. I know that Bogdan recently joined, I don't know which part of some sort of civilian army. He sort of took up the arms with a bulletproof vest and so on. So that's scary to see. Bogdan, really guy, also very religious, beautiful person. So working with Bogdan Mizura, doing with Karina and Bogdan in trainings and so on, I've been to Kiev several times. Beautiful people to work with. Now, obviously, I don't, not obviously, but I don't speak Ukrainian and I don't speak Russian, let alone what I've been told, the continuous combination and mixing up of both languages in certain parts of the country. And then there was another trainer in Ukraine, Slava. I've worked with Slava. I've trained him also. He's been in my TTT classes. He was then doing classes together with Bogdan over there. I believe mainly Kiev, because he speaks Russian and Ukrainian, which is sometimes more better for people attending the class. Slava's been to a couple of years away, been in Singapore. Doing great stuff. He's come back to Kiev. I was in touch with Bogdan a couple of times now, so he took his family to the west of Ukraine. They seem to be safe, but very scary stuff. Now, there's another guy that I wanna highlight here. He's not from Ukraine, but he's from Belarus. Also a PST. I got to know him at some internal event that we have at Scrum the Talk. He's been also facilitating people's learning with professional Scrum classes in Kiev, in Ukraine, together with Bogdan, so Konstantin Razimovsky. Done plenty of classes in traveling to Ukraine, doing classes there. So I know him. There's a Ukrainian link, but I also want to point out. So Konstantin is from Belarus. He was an observer during the last election in Belarus. We all know that was one big fraud. He's been the witness of the fraud, and the oppression that followed the elections. He spent 2 weeks in jail for doing what he did in Belarus. He's now living with his family in Poland because Belarus was becoming too dangerous for him. He's done a lot of classes too. So these are the people for whom I'm doing this. This is the people that my heart is with. This is people I care for, and this is just, I hope this helps you sort of show a little bit of the face of this ugly war that is happening. Bogdan under arms, Karina probably, Slava having to run to the western side of Ukraine, Konstantin living in Poland, having to flee Belarus, and we all know that Belarus is now, Lukashenko is accomplished to the other dictator, and they're all invading Ukraine. Just please help me think about those people. So this is why I'm doing it. Okay, and like Andrea and so on said, let's go for the wonderful part. I forget to mention that it's for the occasion. Okay, I want to talk about organizing for value. I hope you're okay with that. Just let's go for Scrum. Let's make this sort of useful as from a Scrum perspective, let's say. Since some time, I've always started my presentations by just quickly introducing this. It's for me a very important thing. It's sort of a motto in my life. It's in my home office here. It's on the wall. Life isn't about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. I like to say that it also applies to Scrum. I like to say Scrum is not about finding it. It's about creating it. With Scrum, we try to frame people's intelligence, creativity. We try to streamline communication a little bit, give people direction and so on in a professional environment. But in the end, we want to unleash people's ability to self-organize. We frame that with inspection adaptation, the empirical process. So think about it. You can spend your life sitting around waiting for stuff to happen, or you can try to take matters into hands and try to change things. And that's sort of what I try to do. And it's been very important also in life for me. So not just Scrum, but also my life of Scrum. So I call myself an independent Scrum caretaker. And what I try to do, I truly believe in that, is try to humanize the workplace with Scrum. Sounds honestly very strange, knowing what's happening over there in Ukraine. A very inhumane situation, but still. So let's talk Scrum. What is the difficulty for me with Scrum is that Scrum is a very simple or lightweight framework. It says officially in the Scrum guide, a lightweight framework with sort of only a minimal set of instructions, so to speak. Yeah, it's sort of acknowledging that dealing with complex challenges like software development, like product development, or other complex challenges, dealing with them, that is more like an interaction game. That is not about a technical game. That's not about IT implementation, whatever. It's more like an interaction game. How do people work with each other? How do they interact? Now, Scrum is minimalist in the sense that we only give some guidelines on how to create a frame within which people can collaborate, behave differently, interact with each other, do great stuff, strive for excellence, and so on. Now, that's sort of that minimalism of Scrum works a little bit against us. Why? Because in Scrum, and I think that's a good thing, in the definition of Scrum, we don't have rules, guidelines on how to organize around Scrum or how to reorganize organizations. We don't say how an organization should look like, how it should operate, and so on. Our belief was, and still is, that by introducing Scrum, you will uncover so many dysfunctions within organizations, and by making them transparent and highly visible, we believe, and we believed, and we still believe that people would start addressing those dysfunctions, changing them, updating them, whatever. Now, it's in a way a little bit naive of us, because it seems that as human beings, we're also very good at wiping it under the carpet, or blaming Scrum, or twisting Scrum to fit or to existing situations, and almost keep the dysfunctions in place, but then start twisting Scrum, change the rules of Scrum, and so on. So that is in that sense a little bit naive, but I think it's a good thing, because it in a way invokes people to think about those things, and if they decide not to, that is still a choice people can make. Everybody makes their own choices. Now, I truly believe that introducing Scrum, keeping the rules intact, not trying to twist the rules to fit your existing dysfunctions, whatever. Introducing Scrum cannot be done properly without an impact on the organization. Period. It's one of the statements I also have in my book. So thank you, Andrew, for again reminding people. So a little book, Scrum, a pocket guide. And in the latest edition, I have actually said that you can't introduce Scrum without an impact on the organization. Period. End of discussion. Try to avoid that and whatever. So, and this is a statement building on that. You know what? You can only use Scrum effectively for agility, your speed, your responsiveness, to humanize the workplace, to unleash that sort of those self-organizing capabilities of people. You can't have all of those beautiful benefits and effects of Scrum if you're not willing to rethink how the organization around Scrum looks like. And thinking about that, so by the beginning of the COVID crisis 2 years ago, I wrote a paper called Moving Your Scrum Downfield. Why did I write that? Because I'm sort of, how can I use almost foul language? I'm sort of fed up with people debating the nuts and bolts and the commas and the whatever of the Scrum guide, being stuck in a debate of what do they mean with this word, how can we interpret it, that word, and so on. So start doing Scrum. Leave it as it is, try to live it, try to enact it, try to improve, look for better ways, make sure you have all of the elements in place. Like today, I had the second day of a product owner class. Make sure you have a product owner in place, and then find out how to improve that with mandate authorizations, whatever. Try to upgrade the role, try to get more out of it, and that applies to every single element of Scrum. So get going, take it in your hands, take action, do something. Like life is not about finding it; it's about creating it. Same goes for Scrum. So I created this paper called Moving Your Scrum Downfield, describing at least what I call 6 essential traits of Scrum. Whether you look them up in the rules or they are literally in the Scrum guide or not, some 6 essential traits. Now, as an extension of that, moving your Scrum downfield, I think it's important that we start managing for value. We've got ideas about that, but also organizing for value, and that's what I would like to talk about. Because in general, most organizations were, but still are not organized for complex problems, the complexity of today's world, complex challenges. We've got this pyramid structure, so this is a conceptual representation, but you know what, you've got all these people, business, IT, they seem to be each other's enemies all the time, and in order to get them to collaborate within the silos that they're organized in, we set up a governance, deciding who should be talking to whom at what point in time, what meetings need to take place, what intermediate delivers need to be created, what sign-offs need to happen, and so on. That is slow, that is full of delays, whatever, and that has a focus not on, let's say, enterprise or organization, whatever, agility in general, flexibility, responsiveness to what is happening on the market, innovation, being quicker on the market with new ideas that are disruptive for other companies and so on. It's all focused on ourselves. So it's also, our organizations are based upon industrial ideas and beliefs, which are in my book also called the industrial paradigm. Meaning it's all about efficiency, utilization, cost reduction, sharing things, resources, and so on. So we're all looking at the inside of our organizations. How can we try to do stuff as quickly as possible for as least cost and so on as possible? It's all about our internal operations. And in the industrial paradigm, that's a lot based upon the fact that, you know what, the people at the bottom of the organization are, and that, by the way, it's a cynical thing that I write over there, are considered mindless workers, dumb, mindless workers that are just supposed to do what high-ranked people tell them to do. And we try to turn that around. Because even if this model was working is working for mass production or industrial work or manufacturing, which by the way, I believe it doesn't, but still, that was sort of the idea, the industrial paradigm. Even if it wasn't fit for that, it is certainly not a fit for today's complex work and creative work, knowledge work, and complex challenges. And why is that? Because it is rigid. It is rigid all over the place. It's full of delays. It is slow. It is full of rigidities. And then a lot of those organizations, when facing or being confronted with their own rigidity to respond, being slow on the market, non-engaged people, low quality products, crappy products, full of technical debt and so on, they hear about other companies and they want to do the same, because it seems that everybody's going for Agile. Nobody knows what it means, but everybody's going for Agile. So you'll say, yeah, we want an Agile transformation. And I would almost add, we want an Agile transformation too, because it seems everybody else is doing it. So, and then they've got their existing structures and they want an Agile transformation. And what do they in general do? Certainly larger organizations, but unfortunately, I see this also happening in smaller and even medium organizations. And with medium, I mean companies of about 200, 300, maybe 500 people working for them, where you would expect some sort of natural sense of agility, given by the size of the company itself already, but it seems to be very naive again. So what do? They've got all these individuals running around the company in a way, but in a way also mentally locked up in their silo departments, with their functional specializations like testers and salespeople and marketing people and analysts and programmers and coders and enterprise architects, all locked in their specialization. Now, suddenly often within those specializations, they now say, oh, we're going to have to do Scrum or Agile. Become Agile means everybody now has to work as a team. And that is in a way correct. But you know what? Establishing teams within existing organizational structures, certainly silos and departments, that doesn't change the rigidity. It is still a rigid organization if those micro teams have to work together following governance and processes and procedures and handovers again and so on. So therefore, sort of my title, more agile teams does not make a more agile organization. That's plainly not enough. Plus, on top of that, they reform people into teams, and then they do something what I call they industrialize their Scrum to death. In that sense, all those teams are now called Scrum teams. They all have to follow, do Scrum in exactly the same way, which might be, let's say, in the fact that they all have to work in sprints of 2 weeks across the organization, and all sprints have to start and end at the same date. Across the whole organization, imagine 100 teams. So regardless of technology, products, markets that you're facing, user base that you're trying to serve, whatever. And that's like, okay, cool. You can standardize on Scrum without industrializing it to death. One of the beautiful advantages of Scrum is it creates a framework, and all teams or for all products in organization, you could apply Scrum. But maybe for product A, you might have sprints of 3 weeks. You would use your product backlog probably in a different way. Releasable and definition of done would mean something else. So at the heart, it's all Scrum. Everybody knows what we're talking about, the roles, the accountability, the artifacts, the events, what purpose they serve, and so on. But you can give them a separate meaning, a separate way of doing that. But that's why in my book, I've made a distinction between the rules of the game versus tactics to play the game. So you could use very different tactics to play the game depending on things. So in that sense, my question is, so reforming all individuals now into small, what I would call micro teams, that is not going to help. It's about rethinking the structures around it. So what about that? It seems that a lot of people, leadership, management, believe, oh yeah, Scrum, everybody's now team, so cool. We're safe. We can't be touched or we shouldn't be touched or. Okay, there's a little echo coming through.
Yep. Can you please mute yourself?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I really wonder what about this level? Let's say, what is about management, leadership, governance, processes, procedures, structures, meetings around Scrum. And then I want to go back to that beautiful paper where we got the name Scrum from, the new product development game, 1986, where they defined 6 key characteristics of what they then call Scrum, which is mainly around self-organization. So we added empiricism to that, by the way, and that became the Scrum that we know. Even in 1986, they already said, you know what, in order to promote, to really benefit from this new way of working, which they called Scrum, based upon self-organization, setting goals, but not telling people what to do and so on, organizations need to adopt a management style that promotes this process. So 1986, and we're still struggling with it. So I decided I'm going to make this my main speaking topic for 2022, because it's part of moving your Scrum downfield. Start acting Scrum, start doing it, learn from it, improve. Become better at it, and also have the courage to touch existing structures, rethink them. And I want to help people a little bit. Because touching structures around Scrum means also touching management. So don't just reimagine your Scrum, also reimagine management. And you know what, you might be surprised, but even managers would agree. a lot of leadership. This is from research from the Boston Consulting Group of a couple of years ago, where they did research across the world, actually 5 countries and China. So in a way, not too large, but still, I think sufficiently good enough, and it said a lot to me, because I see this happening in practice too. And it said they've been asking managers about their role, and only a limited amount of managers say that, 37% say that they really want to stay a manager. I'm not in the long term, let's say a couple of years, 5 to 10 years time. That is almost scary. Like only 37% saying, I am doing something that I like so much that I want to keep doing this. And people being managed say that only 9% of them say that they still aspire to become a manager. So it seems to be not attractive, not to people in a leadership role, not to people that might become a leader or a manager. So that's scary. And the number one dissatisfaction is that they only have to implement decisions in a way that are imposed upon them. Meaning I only have to execute decisions that were imposed upon me that come from one layer up. Now imagine that is happening throughout an organization. Who's in the end going to suffer the most? Obviously the bottom layer, because every layer sends out decisions to the layer underneath that. And if you know about motivation and humanizing the workplace and so on, a lot of them say that it's in a way an extrinsic motivator. I'm only doing this because of the status, the company car, the salary, climbing the ladder, whatever. That is an extrinsic motivator. And as we all know, extrinsic motivators can become highly toxic too. Now, the good thing about the survey is that they also been asking those managers. So if you're not happy in the current job, if your number one dissatisfaction, what do you think management should be about then? So it's not what you currently have to do. What should it be? What should it be about? And they all said, overall, they said five things. It should be about helping people, helping teams, helping people develop themselves, develop their skills, sort of support their professional and therefore also personal development, give feedback on that, eliminate obstacles, facilitate elimination of obstacles, help teams in that way move forward, set goals rather than tasks. Goals that are achievable. This stupid idea that you have these stretch whatever things goals that are beyond people's means, and that's not helpful. And make decisions rather than having to implement decisions that are opposed, and also at least be involved in decisions, in setting decisions and giving direction. And in that sense also helping teams by give them meaning, purpose, and try to motivate teams from purpose, not from just follow what I tell you to do. Now, I don't know whether you recognize it, but a lot of those managers probably don't realize it, but this is purely Scrum. Because all those things, we've got accountabilities for that in Scrum. So in that sense, those top 5 things, if you would implement Scrum all the way, including the self-organizing aspect. And why do I say it like that? Because for me, Scrum's DNA has 2 aspects: self-organization, empiricism. Empiricism is more like the process aspect of Scrum. I think a lot of organizations are starting or trying to adopt that. Yeah, the empiricism, that's sort of the process side of things, more like, can I say that, the cold side of Scrum, that's almost the easy side. But the self-organizing aspect of Scrum, the people, the human side of Scrum is so much under-highlighted. Yeah. So if you really thrive on Scrum, self-organizing teams and create a context in which you unleash people's self-organizing capabilities and then frame it, give it direction with boundaries, but not telling people how to do, you would have a product owner trying to maximize or optimize for value, set direction via a product vision, maybe potentially product goals and so on. In that sense, be a servant leader by providing direction, vision to everybody within the organization. How to do that? By managing the product, being really the owner of the product, setting direction, not telling other people how to do that, but making sure that we know what to build, what to create, and that we at every single point in time always try to create the most important stuff. Yeah, and if you then have in my paper moving your Scrum down feedback, you see I've used the term Scrum team for what is now called developers. So you could read that also as development team and just calling it Scrum team like in some early days. Just a matter of terminology, we mean the same. Accountable to take matters in their own hand, create done increments within the boundaries of Scrum, managing their own work within a sprint, dealing with the how of the work, collaborating with the product owner for the what, and all facilitated, coached, being thought, so a teacher and a mentor being the Scrum Master, facilitating the game, making sure people understand the rules, that they live by them, that they understand the purpose of the rules, more than enforcing the rules in whatever way. In that sense, making sure that a healthy environment is created in which those people can do their job. That already is an implementation of those 5 top abilities that people currently in a management position say that management should be about: direction, focus, goal, product vision, self-organizing teams, removing impediments, providing means, providing a context for development of people, self-development of people, and so on. So, and if that combination of Scrum teams, they start working in different ways and start growing new relationships amongst themselves. By doing so, they will also create or develop new relationships with the people around them. So at least with stakeholders within the organization. So stakeholders no longer about hierarchy, it's about providing input for the development, the further creation and evolution of the product. The same for the consumers of the product, the people that consume the products and the services that you create. So they will give you important feedback and input on the usability of the product, the usage of the product, what is appreciated, what not, and so on. So and then you get a very different way of working. You could extend stakeholders and consumers also sometimes to SMEs within the organization. So subject matter experts, people that support the product development with highly specialized, hyper specialized, whatever insights and skills that maybe you don't need full-time on the Scrum team and only part-time or only at occasions. Yeah. So and that would be actually an implementation of those 5 things that managers say that management should be about. So in that sense, the shared management and shared leadership that we already have in Scrum is an implementation of what management should be about. So reimagining management is actually really possible with Scrum, and it's even what managers say or current managers say that should happen. Now, a lot of organizations are, it seems, sometimes totally clueless about why they exist, what they're hoping to achieve, and so on. And making money is maybe not the most creative purpose that you can think about. Why do you exist? What is the positive change? What do you try to mean for society, for your employees, for the environment, whatever? And that has huge effects, because if your organization is clueless about why do we even exist, that mission statement and so on, it's all often, I don't know whether you feel it also, it's all often very just plainly marketing. Yes, we have values in place, but you know what, do you live by them? Do you enact them? Or it's just about making money? And that's often why the idea of Scrum, why are you actually doing Scrum? That's also being lost because you're clueless as an organization, you don't know why you exist. That often has the effect of, yeah, why are we actually doing Scrum? Because all of the other ones are doing it? That's maybe not the best possible motivation to introduce Scrum. So let's go back to that definition of Scrum. Again, it's from my paper. A simple framework that enables people to derive value from complex challenges in a self-organizing way and so on. So complex challenges, we know software development, product development, IT work, but also in the meantime, a lot of other activities from other companies in other domains of society, not product development and so on, but complex activities. So, and then if you think about it, the purpose in the end of the why of Scrum, it's about value. And value, like I wrote in that paper, is a very different driver than volume is. Volume means doing more, faster, and so on, producing more features quicker, and so on. That is, more is not the same as value. Value is trying to do the right stuff. the things that have the biggest impact, that increase customer satisfaction the most, that have the highest benefits. It's not about more, it's trying to do the right things. So Scrum and also the Agile Manifesto already said that it's about value. Because the first statement, Agile Manifesto, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer to early and continuous delivery of valuable software. You could say valuable products in the meantime, but it's about creating something that is seen and perceived and experienced as valuable, not just more. So besides thinking, reimagining management and introducing Scrum, so also think about why are you introducing Scrum? And then be able and courageous enough to enact upon your findings. Now, value, like it said already in my paper and also in the Scrum Guide, product is the vehicle to deliver value. Now, I've put product between quotes. Why? It can be a service, it can be a digital thing, it can be an online thing, it can be a real physical product, it can be something that you ship. So think about product in a more generic way than just thinking about a product that is shipped via a box, a physical thing. It might be tangible, it might be non-tangible, might be a good, it might be a service. Yeah? But what for me is important is that the product, whatever you call your product when applying Scrum, when you define that product, the goal is still with your product to deliver end-to-end value to the consumers of the product. It's not about having something and then throw it over the wall to another team that they can build on it and extend it and so on. You could call those things sometimes a product. It might be a component of a product or a part of a product or a subsystem of a product, whatever. The idea is product is something to deliver end-to-end, start to finish value to the consumers of the product. That is for me important. And then raises the question, so we've got these companies wanting to become agile, adopting Scrum for that, reforming everybody into Scrum teams, but sort of isolated micro Scrum teams, sort of locked inside those old silos, departmental thinking and so on. Still rigid because a lot of people lacking the courage to rethink structures, leadership and so around Scrum. And then the next question is, where is product in all of this? When you form people into teams, what are they doing? What is the scope of their work? Where Scrum is about, in a way, again, the roots of Scrum about product development, new product development, product management. So where's the definition of your product? And if you have several teams all working on the same product, but one team does a little part of the work, they throw it over the wall to the next team and they continue to work, and another team, and again, they continue to work, and they all work officially in 2-week sprints. You know what? If you have a chain of 10 teams like working like that, your let's say agility, your speed is not 2 weeks, it's 10 times 2 weeks, it's still 20 weeks and more. And who's going to integrate a product, and who's going to make sure that somebody's taking care of the overarching product that in the end all those teams work on? Because a lot of companies are not thinking about what is the product and then organize your Scrum teams to optimally serve your product. And that's where and how I want to help. So I've called that Reversify at some point in time, helping organizations reimagine their Scrum to get more out of it. And that starts by defining your product and then reorganize your Scrum teams in such a way that they can optimally serve that product, build, evolve, change, update, whatever that product, and thereby serve the consumers of the product with valuable things. So again, Scrum is only used effectively if organizations rethink or have the courage to rethink the structures around it, like I said at the start. Now, what I try to bring to organizations is move away from large, whatever, overnight, whatever they call agile transformations, in which they try to overturn the complete organization almost overnight, or you leave the company on Friday evening and you come back in a perfectly agile company on Monday morning. It doesn't happen like that. It's an iterative, incremental process, changing an organization. So when I go into organizations, I asked them to try to identify one initiative, a product, a service, and then let's have a look at that one initiative only. Because let's be honest, teams that are operating from a functional specialization or building only a component, one backend service or one interface or one the GUI layer or the whatever from that functional specialization, or doing only integration of the product, but now no longer as an individual, but as a so-called team, those are not teams, not in the meaning of Scrum, not in against the purpose of optimally serving a product. The problem with what I would call Scrum teams, cross-functionally composed teams with all the disciplines to maintain, evolve, and so on, a product, you can't map that onto the existing organizational structures, because it means you're not getting people to work together, collaborate via governance, but by working on the same product. That means define your product. Your product is for a number of consumers beyond the organization that you're trying to serve, where you try to increase market share, get some benefit from, get them to subscribe, or maybe customer retention and all those beautiful things that we do for our customers. So it's not about governance, it's about the product. And then assembling teams for the product means you need a product owner. A product needs a product owner, somebody accountable to make sure that the right things are being built at the right point in time. But then you also need people, not just to build the right stuff, but build it in the right way. So product owner what? And then you need development people, what I call in my paper the Scrum team, or the developers it's now called nowadays. And the problem with development of a product, that means you might need some analysis skills, you might need some designing skills, some architectural skills, some programming skills, some coding skills, some testing skills, some releasing skills, some technical writing skills. And when they're locked inside of their silos, their departments, it means that a team needs to get people from those different departments and then work on the product. In a way, their main place within the organization would be the Scrum team and not their department. And that seems to be too difficult, but this is a team. And if you really want a great team, that means you probably might also want to add business skills to the teams, like a business analyst or sometimes a product manager or whatever. So a team then being facilitated by a Scrum Master, that is no longer limited to one silo. It goes across all those silos. And that is rethinking how you're doing Scrum, making sure that you've got all the expertise and the skills to build, evolve, change, update a product within the team, no matter where they come from. So it goes across the organization. So you can't just map it simply onto the organization. And what I ask companies to do, think about one product, one service, and then let's think about the product owner. Is it really a product owner? Does he or she have a mandate? Can he take decisions? What sort of the level of authorizations that he has to take decisions, or she? And then make sure we have all of the skills to maintain, build, document, whatever, evolve the product. And get those people to hopefully in a shared team room at least. And then those people obviously will work for stakeholders to try to act in the best interest of the stakeholders within the organization. Sometimes consult with subject matter experts for certain topics and so on. So the Scrum team then becomes part of a bigger thing and a sort of ecosystem, so if you want. And that is what I call a product hub, a hub around a product. We've got all those people focused on their work for the product. So identify your product, have a product owner with an ecosystem consisting of a Scrum team and other people involved in that non-hierarchical spirit that we just talked about, which management people or people currently in management positions say that we really need. So, and do that for one product only. So create a product hub. Start working, start delivering releasable increments to the users, to the consumers, try to increase customer satisfaction, see what it does, see what existing procedures and governance things you no longer need. And once you feel you get it going for one product, then maybe do it again for another product. Same, going through the same, let's say, motions. identify a product, define it, make sure you have a product owner, assemble people around it with the right skills and expertise to build, evolve, and so on the product. And then your agile, whatever transformation you would call it, becomes a more like iterative incremental thing. So product after product after project after service, whatever is transformed to operate on Scrum. And thereby you're actually reorganizing without maybe even knowing it, because a product hub becomes a sort of organization within the organization, focused on a product. But the idea is, don't forget that product is the vehicle to deliver value. So that is really important. So optimize for your products, optimize to deliver value. Don't optimize for internal operation, resource utilization, cost cutting, sharing resources and sharing whatever. No, optimize to deliver value to your consumers, thereby to the organization, and thereby create a more humane environment. So, and in the end, because in your product hub, it's centered around the product, it's all focused on a product. It means you have a product owner at the heart of the product. Whether that product owner comes from business, IT, whatever, I don't care, but the product owner is now for the product, no longer for a department. And if you think about all of the activities that you need to do for a product, meaning sales activities, maybe there's financial aspects, maybe even legal, I don't know, things like government regulations, GDPR types of things, but also marketing, commercial things, branding, strategic decisions and strategic choices, and building, delivering the product. Yeah. Now, ultimately, at least where you want to use Scrum is at least to deliver the product. Evolve it, create it, update it, change it iteratively, incrementally in sprints. Working with a Scrum team, Annex developers to do that work, but still your product owner is sort of what I call the product CEO, or in this case, the product hub CEO. Sort of the from a non-hierarchical spirit, minding the what are we doing? Are we doing this for the right reason? Maintaining a product vision, thinking about potentially product goals, working with people, bringing in sales, marketing information into the ordered product backlog, which is then converted into deliverable increments by the developers or development team, or what I call the Scrum team. From having information from the actual progress, the product owners can keep up to date, marketing people, sales people, and so on. So you got a sort of autonomous organization within the organization, aligned with company strategies, company direction, and so on. That's the role of the product owner, to make sure that there's an alignment. Yeah. Now, in those other aspects of product development, you might have stakeholders that you're trying to serve, that you want to include. You might have subject matter experts that you want to involve in the development for highly specialized insights that you might be needing, not be needing full time. And it's all happening with the facilitation of one or multiple Scrum Masters, helping the Scrum team grow better relationships within the team, by helping the team as a whole also grow better other relationships with stakeholders, subject matter experts, and so on. So a little product-centric organization within the organization for a product. And that is actually, I'm saying that in Scrum we don't have rules on how to organize. Now, in a way, in that paper, the new product development game, there are at least a couple of hints that everybody is ignoring. In the new product development game, say you need a new management style in place to promote this process, which they call Scrum, and describe it as you want teams or an ecosystem around the product, which I call a product hub. You want them to operate almost like, not almost, but like a startup. They set their own agenda, they take their own initiatives within the boundaries of the organization, aligned with strategies of the organization. But nobody in the organization is telling anybody within the product hub who should be doing what at what point in time. You give them boundaries, you might give them challenges, goals, objectives, whatever, not targets, that's a different thing. And they set their own agenda, and then management or leadership acts, that is literally from the new product development game, acts as an investor. I believe they call it a venture capitalist, but I don't like that too much. It's almost too aggressive for me. So I call it an investor, but at least not intervening on a daily basis. Provide the ecosystem, the product hub with guidance money, funding, moral support, all things to support them, let's say at the outset. Don't intervene on a daily basis. Now, those Scrum teams are operating on short cycles that we call sprints. Every 2 to 3 weeks, all the decisions they make become highly visible anyhow. We love transparency. So there's no reason also for management to intervene, to breathe down people's neck all day long, to make sure that they stick to their estimates, that they have the right tasks implemented and identified. There's no reason to do that. Provide them with support at the outset. So, and as I said, do this in an iterative, incremental way. Do this for one product. Yeah, create such a product hub, a startup. Do it for another product and another product, and then you combine. You give an answer to my 2 questions. So you still have a rigid organization, because more agile teams does not make a more agile organization. You have to be more brave, more courageous than that. Think about rethinking the structure around it, define product, and have the courage to reorganize to optimally serve the product. And Scrum can totally help you in that. So that in the end, you show the courage to gradually move your organization towards a networked structure of product hubs. So you get some flexibility now built into the organization, into the organizational structures, because a product hub can grow, it can shrink, it can disappear. You can emerge a new product hub if you have a new idea about the service or a product. So you now have agility in your structures. Your structures are now agile, no longer rigid. And then what combines, what binds those teams is its purpose. Why are we existing as an organization? In that sense, what do we call value? What is valuable? How do you want to be seen on the market? So leadership becomes a more of a distributed quality, and not just a quality of a couple of people, often highly assertive people. You probably know that the HIPPO principle, highest paid person, also the person that shouts the loudest or is the most aggressive or the most assertive toward getting it their way. Let's get rid of that and build like really agile organizations. Those are really scalable. They can grow, they can shrink. They have flexibility built into their structures. When product after product, you turn it into a product hub with a lot of autonomy within the product hub, managing the product hub from the outset, like we shared. Go see at sprint reviews what is happening, help them build an even better product, facilitate them, make sure they have funding, ask them in return for the funding to regularly share what they've done, give insights, allow you to give feedback on them, and then totally ingrain that iterative, incremental way of working. And that is for me how to organize for value. You will optimize your ability to deliver value, because product is the vehicle to deliver value. Might be a service, might be a good, might be a digital thing, might be a physical thing, but so think about it. It's not necessarily only software product, it can be also services that you provide to your user base, your consumer base. Those might even be health services or other services. Yeah? So think about it. What are the services that we're trying to provide to our users, our consumers, and how to better organize around that? As sort of my alternative approach to what is in the meantime called a traditional sort of agile transformation. So by using Scrum, you would move authority down the line even further. Remember that even people currently in a management position say that this is the way forward. Helping people, facilitating people, removing impediments, creating an environment where people can develop and so on. Yeah? Leadership becomes something distributed, and in the end, those product hubs are also going to develop different relationships with their users, the consumers of the product. And then hopefully that ecosystem type of thinking will stretch across, will also include users and consumers. That's sort of my belief of a better future. And I think to start moving our Scrum downfield, we really need to go for something more than just discuss or debate nitty-gritty details of the Scrum guide. Cool. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for listening. I haven't been looking at the chat for any questions. I wasn't interrupted either. Maybe they tried. I have no idea. Any questions, thoughts, considerations?
Thanks a lot, Gunther. So I believe there weren't any questions right away in the chat. I believe people were just listening very, very attentively. So now is the time. What I get from the talk is actually when we're trying to use Scrum, Scrum is the most popular framework. So one of the main messages is actually come back to the roots of Scrum, right?
Yeah, go for the simplicity. No, but you know, we have a product backlog. We have a product owner. Most product owners that I see are not really, if they know what their product is, they certainly don't own it. And often they have no idea. When I look at product backlogs, I'm like, it looks more like a team backlog. It's a collection of work for a team. So reverse that, go back. Know your product, define your products, identify your product, and then have a backlog for the product, have an owner. That would restore, I think, the essence of Scrum. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we have a question, and this question comes from Idris, and the question is, where does value streams come in when talking about product and Scrum teams? Yeah,
well, it comes in more like, can I say, a sort of virtual way. So when I talk about product, I mean a product that delivers end-to-end value to your users, your consumers. That means a full value stream, if so to speak. Because you can think about a product being a component of something bigger, then that component might be presented as a product because it has boundaries as well. But it's not a product delivering end-to-end value to users or consumers. So in that sense, use a definition of a product with which you can have a, let's say, full value stream, start to finish. So in a way, a value stream, if I call product the vehicle to deliver value, that means to serve a complete value stream. So you could use potentially value stream as an alternative expression for what I mean with a product. So we organize around a value stream so that you can deliver end-to-end value to consumers and users.
Yeah. Are there any more questions? Oh, yes, we have. How to identify and measure value?
Yeah, that is a great question. First, I wanna quickly go into what Richard says. It sounds like this is an agile release train. I don't know a lot about SAFe. The only thing I know, whenever I look at SAFe and I hear people talk about SAFe implementations, and when I read stuff, I hardly recognize Scrum in it. So I think Richard, honestly, I think a product hub is more, or at least different than just a sort of almost simplified implementation of SAFe. It's just building on Scrum. But I do get what you're talking about. Without the overhead, well, that is the essential problem, obviously, of SAFe. The way I present it is more like building a bottom up and collecting skills and people around it. So for me, it's a very different thing, but maybe I'm not familiar with SAFe enough. But at least in a product hub, I think the overhead would be very, very, very limited at least, and only the necessary things. Then about this thing about value, I hope that thinking about Scrum, derive value from complex challenges like product development. So in that sense, derive value from your work on a product or a value stream, because it's in the word. That in itself hopefully makes people think about what is our product and what is value. And value might change over time, because we all know products have a life cycle. They get born, they grow up, they become more mature. Maybe at some point in time you pivot, you add features, you remove features, you add components, you split it up, whatever, you change the product architecture, whatever. So projects have a very, very big life, and at some point in time, products are taken out of the market again because they're pointless. They don't make a lot of sense. You don't make money over them anymore. They're too difficult to maintain. The technology has grown old. In a way, they're, for whatever reason, end of life. So you take them out of the market again. So over the lifetime of a product, probably the definition of value might change. Just an example, maybe beginning more like MVP thinking and so on. And maybe the value would be learning, quick feedback from the market, not that much about making money. Over time, it might become making money. So when I worked at Scrum the Talk, and I still promote that, that's sort of the other aspect. When I started, I said, this is about organizing for value. Obviously, within a product hub, you would be what I call managing for value. That means you really have to think about the product. What is value for the product, indeed? Because value is just a generic word. You have to identify, what do we mean with value? Is that customer satisfaction? Is that market share? Is that financial benefits? Is that a financial profit? Is that a return on investment somewhere? Is that cost reduction? So you have to think about value. So that is this, starting with defining a product, hopefully also raises the question of, now let's talk about what do we mean with value? And I believe value, it's a difficult thing, but managing for value means identifying value, and that probably certainly in commercial organizations probably always has an aspect of bringing money to the organization, benefits, profits, whatever, something with money, always something with customers or users, because in the end, if you don't make your customers or your users happy, you're probably not going to make a lot of money either. So, but also what is often overlooked for me is also value. So value for the people consuming the product, value for the people funding the product, and value for the people building the product, value for the people doing the work. So in that sense, introducing Scrum, adopting Scrum should be seen as valuable by the consumers, by the organization, by the stakeholders, also by the teams doing the work. So think about team engagement, or that expression of commitment, that Scrum value, engagement, dedication, energy, loving to do that work and so on, or loving to do that work again after the time that they lost that fun and energy. So value for the consumers of the product, value for the people funding the development of the product, and value for the people doing the work. Beyond that, you can think about value for society, value for the environment, something of environmental friendly, not creating pollution or whatever. So just ideas to think about value, but you have to think about value for your product in your context, your user base, and so on.
Thanks a lot. We have a next question, and it's regarding how should we form the team. So the question is, so if a product provides end-to-end value, can component teams be said to be delivering customer value?
Component teams individually, no. Component teams combined, potentially. So if you have a product and your product is let's start with a simple situation. It's again, my book, I've called it single team Scrum. So imagine product being built by one team, a single team. Then almost automatically, to provide end-to-end value, your team would almost naturally have to be a feature team. Otherwise, you can't deliver value. So it's not about being stubborn about the fact that it has to be a feature team. No, you want to deliver end-to-end value. And that will automatically have you set up a feature team, because then it's across all those departmental structures, like I've shown in that picture. You need somebody able to test, to program, to code, to analyze, to design, to blueprint, whatever things, maybe a UX person in the team. That's all called development Scrum. And you will probably need all of those skills in the team to provide end-to-end value. Otherwise, you can't build increments that are actually really releasable, fit for production without any additional work remaining. Now imagine that your product is too big for one team to maintain. You've got more expectations, market expectations, your expectations. You want to go faster, you want to do more. So be careful, first of all, make sure that you have a well-oiled, let's say, high-performing single Scrum team. If you have a single Scrum team not being able to deliver actually releasable increments, adding a team to that is not going to magically help you certainly do that. And that should be the first thing. So try to have with a single team. If you have multiple teams, then it's what I call, and I don't believe in my book, in a blog note. So you move from a single feature team to a feature system. That means the combination of multiple teams must be able, as a system, as a holistic system, be able to produce end user usable features, regardless of the composition of the individual teams. Obviously, that will work better if all teams are feature teams, but let them figure out, help them retrospect on their composition. How can we, as a combination of teams, produce actually releasable features to the market? So, but again, a lot of people think they need to scale, where I think they don't need to, but first get their Scrum in a more healthy state, let's say, even with one team.
We also always say that when you think about scaling and you don't have good working Scrum on one team level, all of the good stuff, you also scale all of the bad stuff. And if you can deal with it on the one team level, I don't think you can deal with it when there are multiple teams working together, where complexity rises, and it's not rising linearly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in the fortunate position to work with single teams that had like really great development practices in place, like often from extreme programming, where we did continuous integration multiple times a day, where we did overnight performance testing, pair programming, test-driven development, all those things, automated testing, access to systems and environments and so on. And then with a single team of, and I've worked up to five or six pairs in a team, which actually would translate into 12 developers if you want. And then you can do amazing stuff. But everybody likes to think for themselves that they have to be the new Facebook or the new Google or the new Amazon. But I've worked with quite large organizations and I've never seen those demands or requirements at such a scale. You can do so much with one team that has all of the tooling, the authorizations, the access, the intrinsic motivation, the engagement, then probably the need to scale doesn't even exist anymore, at least in my situation.
We have two more questions, and one coming from Maciek is, what is usually your biggest challenge when you enter a company and how do you tackle it?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest challenges, that's why I want to talk about this idea of product shops. I've been very sort of reluctant to start talking about this. We see a sort of a rise of organizational frameworks and so, you know, we've got SAFe, we've seen Spotify, we've seen people abusing less to turn it into an organizational model, and it's not intended to be like that and so on. So we see lots of stuff. Even nowadays, we see more organizational models coming up. So I don't want to present an organizational model because we can't have some sort of generic representation of how an organization should look like. So I want to give guiding principles on how to rethink an organization around Scrum, because I feel that is really, really, really needed. We're still stuck in this industrial thinking, treating people like mindless workers. And I've seen quite some Agile transformations go awfully wrong by founding them upon industrial principles like mass production, too much at the same time, to all applying the same practices and so on. So just old school recipes to try. You can't introduce an agile way of working with Scrum based upon those recipes. So I'm trying to help organizations stop that, leave that, or whatever. And it's sort of what I call the illusion of agility. Just builds up an illusion of agility, not true agility. And I call that the deflation by reality. Just the bubble bursts. It's like a balloon going flat. And my response is always, okay, so you've gone through a lot of difficult things. It costs you a lot of money. Let's rethink how you approach this. So let's identify one product, one service, and then rethink how you have organized your Scrum for that product or service. And then people go like, often, honestly, that's my approach. And then not a lot of organizations follow me in that. They don't believe me probably, but a lot of them think, yeah, that's too slow. Yeah, well, you just spent 2, 3, 4 years on trying to do it differently. What do you mean slow? You've just thrown out tons and tons of money out the door. I'm presenting you a viable alternative. If you would follow this way of working and you would do it for the same period of time, 2 to 3 years, I can promise you, you'll be a lot farther than you now are. But it sounds slow, step by step. So that is sort of what the thing that I feel missing in most organizations is to define their product. What is the product? What is your service? What is your vehicle to deliver value? That is something I feel is missing in a lot of organizations.
I want to add one more question. It's just a proper time, I believe, because it's about product definition. And sometimes, you know, the current reality of product definition is in organization is really far from some ideal product definition. Like, for example, they say like shopping cart in e-commerce is one product with product backlog and so on. And maybe in ideal, you kind of North Star vision, the product definition should be, we are providing possibility to buy any kind of products in the easiest, cheaper way for our clients, blah, blah. So what do you suggest to your clients how to go from nowadays reality and status quo towards this North Star, more evolutionary scenario, or maybe what should be the first steps towards this changing of mindset regarding product definition?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I'm not a specialist in lean and lean thinking and so on. Things I hear, I like. And when I talk to like really lean people, we get along immediately. So in lean thinking, based upon the Toyota production system, you've got this idea of Kaizen, right? So Kaizen, small incremental improvements. We've got an implementation of that via at least a retrospective. So no later than at the retrospective, you think about improvements, but you can do it sooner or earlier and implement them. Sort of Kaizen, but that Kaizen thing, continuous improvement, happens within that new ecosystem called, let's say, or that new system called Scrum. To move from the industrial paradigm probably to the agile paradigm with Scrum, some bigger changes needed. And I wouldn't call it a revolution, but a more drastic step. And I'm trying to make it more digestible for organizations by saying, don't try to change the full organization to Scrum overnight. No, one product first. But even then, even that doesn't take all of the fear away. But for that one product, it would be a sort of small revolution indeed. And isn't that in, I don't know, in lean thinking called, I have a name for that. So we've got Kaizen for the continuous thing and then a bigger change. So
Kaikaku.
Kaikaku indeed. So sort of Kaikaku in implementing Scrum for a product. And then once you've done that, go to Kaizen more and more. But you can't avoid some sort of bigger step at some point in time, but not for the full organization at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. And there were one more question in chat, I believe.
Yeah, one last question about what your ideal product owner is. And that's going to be a last question.
Yep. I don't like to think in terms of ideal. Maybe ideally, but sort of stop thinking and finding the perfect ideal product owner. Make sure you have a product owner. That's where it starts. Make sure you have a product owner and then think about the mandate, think about the decisions that he or she is allowed to take, and even more important, that he or she is not allowed to take. And how can you upgrade the accountability of the product owner? So that sort of Kaizen. So Kaikaku, make sure you have a product owner with at least some sense of mandate, not just some old school requirements thing. And then go for Kaizen. Now, the problem with the product owner role, and I think that applies to Scrum in general, but let me use the product owner role as an example based upon the question, is that the product owner role or the accountability as we describe it in Scrum, in most organizations does not exist. It is something completely new. Somebody with a sort of end-to-end accountability over the product that in most organizations does not exist. So the problem is that a lot of organizations, oh, Scrum product owner, something with requirements. So we give some existing person within the organization now the title of product owner. And that's often not enough. That is not sort of a person that might grow into becoming that sort of CEO for a product hub, as I try to depict it. That's just somebody into requirements, and then throw requirements over the wall to the developers, and it's not sort of product owner is somebody very difficult, sort of bridging the worlds of business and IT, building a bridge across that world, so connecting those worlds together, and on top of that, also bridging all of the individual product management skills you might have at the business side, sales, marketing, finance, and you name it. So you want somebody to be able to transcend that. And at least if that's not possible today, at least somebody with the potential to do that. But again, Scrum is not, it's not about sitting around waiting for Scrum to happen. Make your Scrum happen yourself. Make sure you have a product owner. And when you run into dysfunctions like lack of mandate, lack of decision power, whatever, try to fix them. Don't wipe them under the carpet. But at least, I think in most organizations, it would be healthy to at least have a product owner, let's say from the business, closer to the users, closer to the consumers, and being able to represent them as well as stakeholders to development and vice versa.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gunther. And the time box has reached its maximum amount of time. I'd like to say two things. First thing is thank you, Gunther, and thank you all who joined and listened. Looking at the chat, we very much appreciate the feedback that you're giving. And second thing I'd like to mention over here. So guys, we have a team who is organizing this, and one of the team members who is organizing this is here. It's Artem. Yeah, so I'm very flattered that you mentioned me over here, but it's not just me, it's our team. And I'd like you all to thank Artem and Gunther as well for this evening, because it wouldn't have happened without them.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you all.
Thank you, Gunther. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Artem. Thank you, Andrew, for inviting me. And thank you all for being here to listening. Thank you. I hope you got something out of it. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank
all.
you guys for organizing.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
Hope to
much.
see you one day offline.
Thanks. Bye.
Very
Bye-bye.
useful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.